All right, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, just talking about the stuff going on in Canada and trying to make sense of it in real time for real people just like you and just like me. So let's recap. So most of the population around the world has lost the battle with the media, number one. The media is not on the side of those with so-called unacceptable views. Unacceptable, a radical fringe with unacceptable views, a radical fringe. This is a guy, by the way, Trudeau, who's polling at about 16%. I know the Canadian political system is a little bit different, where I think you need probably about 25% to get the majority of votes in Canada, maybe a little bit more. But he's polling at 16. And he has gone full-blown tyrant dictator on these people. The banks, that's the next tool. But before I even get to the banks, you've got the media, the courts, where they say, you don't have standing here. You don't have standing. We won't even hear what you're going to bring to us. We're not going to examine the evidence. We're just going to tell you to go away. So the banks, the courts, the media, and obviously the politicians, which are bought and paid for, and then throw in the corporations, which are just selfish and demonic in the sense that they will do whatever the government says. Case in point, you go to a Walmart right now, on the door still to this day, we follow CDC guidelines. Even if we're in a state that has lifted all of these mandates, we follow CDC guidelines. Evil, centralized power. This is why having some libertarian tendencies, it's so much better than having a progressive mindset where you're thinking that the government is your lovable benefactor. The government is here to help you. And the government power corrupts absolutely. It's out of control. And in the case of Trudeau, look, and I know there are some progressives that watch me because, you know, I like Tulsi Gabbard, and I get that. But listen to Tulsi Gabbard these days and tell me what part of progressive is Tulsi really talking about these days. She's talking about things that actually resonate with all critical thinking people. So I don't want to go down that road. I will be doing a video following up the Tulsi video I did, because I had a nice, I guess it was a nice back and forth conversation with somebody on there about my views and their views on, you know, centralized medicine or some type of Medicare program. And right now, healthcare is a big issue, but freedom to me is a much bigger issue, because if you have no freedom, you're probably not going to get healthcare. And then, you know, we can throw the hospital system in with the tyranny as well, because they have a one size fits all protocol. It's a one size, you go in there and they give you the remdesivir, whatever it is that they're going to do for you. And they follow the flow chart and they say, this is what we do. And we're just following orders. That should scare every human being hearing that phrase. I was just following orders. And here we are in Canada. And the only thing that can prevent a full-scale collapse of civilization are those in law enforcement, the military here in the United States, the sheriffs, so-called constitutional sheriffs. Are they really going to uphold the Constitution? Are they going to go up against the FBI and the CIA and the DOD and all the other alphabet soup, NSA? I mean, we've got too much alphabet soup here in the United States. It needs to be thrown into the garbage, the alphabet soup. We could probably do what we do with all these agencies with one agency, maybe. I don't even know. We've got all these branches of the military, and we've got the Coast Guard. We've got all these different things, and yet we keep, you know, Homeland Security. Really? Thank you, George W. Bush. And for those of you more on the right who haven't completely forsaken the George W. Bush era, of this country. You really need, and I don't mind you having a learning curve there, but he was a willing accomplice, controlled opposition, maybe worse in some ways than a Democrat. I don't know. I don't know. I don't trust anybody. I don't trust a political party. I'm a reluctant Republican. I'm not like an enthusiastic Republican. And if the libertarians actually could build a movement, I'd be more interested in that. I don't think we'd win anything for another 50 years, but on paper, I'd like it. But I have to be a pragmatist, and this is where I'm at right now. So let's get back to the discussion of the Canadian banking system, which this is about as scary when you think of it as anything else. So banks in Canada started freezing accounts of those who allegedly were supporting the Trucker Freedom Convoy. As news of bank accounts being frozen spread, several major Canadian banks went offline in what appeared to be a bank run. Now, when you hear run on the banks, when you hear that, that's typically a third world country that's about to collapse. Run on the banks is one of the scariest phrases in the English language, right next to, who's got the nuclear football? Well, it's Joe Biden. That's a pretty scary phrase as well. But in this case, a run on the banks is happening because people are scared. They're pulling their money out. There was this gelato shop or something. They gave like $5, $10 to the truckers, and they were shut down. The Gestapo went in there and shut them down. You're supporting these truckers? You're part of the fringe minority with unacceptable views. See, is Trudeau toast? I don't know if he's toast. If he's toast, he's going to go down in flames. He's going to be flaming toast. He's going to hold on for as long as he can, and he's going to make people pay. He is, and people keep calling him Justin Castro. He is a puppet of the World Economic Forum. He is their A student, their perfect pupil. And he exemplifies this soft masculinity. I know I said he was short. He's actually 6'2", which is hard to understand, hard to believe. But he's very short in stature. And I think I was trying to make that point. But this stuff is evil and dangerous. As news of the bank accounts being frozen spread, Canadian banks went offline, including the Royal Bank of Canada, the Bank of Montreal, Scotiabank, TD Bank Canada, and the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. Oh, the Imperial Bank. Sometimes names are correct. Canadian Twitter users reported they couldn't access their funds at ATMs. One user took a photo of an error message at one of the ATMs that read, "Tap transactions aren't available for this card. We are currently experiencing technical issues with our online and mobile banking, as well as our phone system." That's from the Royal Bank of Canada. Our experts are investigating. Wonder if those experts are medical experts too, but they're investigating and working to get this fixed as quickly as possible. But we have no ETA to provide at this time. We appreciate your patience. BMO customers also reported issues. One customer said, "I'm having trouble and money transfer just gets auto-rejected for no reason. Not going over my limit. All info is verified. And receiving bank says no issues on their end." Receiving bank. So people trying to transfer out of one of these evil Canadian banks that are now linked to the government. No different from our own Federal Reserve here in the United States, by the way. The Federal Reserve Bank is neither federal, nor is it a reserve store of currency. They just make stuff up. They push things around. They mark things up, as one guy said on a famous broadcast that I went ballistic on like last year or 2 years ago. It's all a scam. It's just to make you think that there's actual money. It's like, oh, well, let's go to the Federal Reserve. That's where Fort Knox is. We can drill down and get the gold bars. That's not what is going on there. No, the entire house of cards, banking facade and government politician facade and the media facade. Now, the media in this case is so on the side of this tyrant that it's ridiculous that they just make stuff up out of whole cloth about the truckers and about people who support them and their politics and their gender preferences and all these different things that they start focusing on and their religious views, whatever it is. They are trying to brand these people as domestic terrorists. See, the war on terror didn't end. It just came home. Came home to Canada, came home to the United States. And they need somebody to always go after. And if they start using the military on Canadian citizens to purge them from a peaceful protest, then Canada, as a first world country, is done. It may have first world infrastructure. It may have great hockey teams. It may have lots of fun things to do and see, but it's not a first world country if they are going to attack their own citizens with their own military. That crosses a line that you can't recover from unless the military begins to oust, and I do mean this seriously, and I've been saying this for a while, and I'm not into authoritarianism, but again, you've got a Charter of Rights. You've got this charter, and they're in violation of the charter, and you can sit there and read it. And you could say, okay, Trudeau and all of his minions are in violation of this charter. And we, as the military, stand by the charter, and we are now going to start arresting those who are in violation of this charter. They have the power, and they can go ahead and do that. And Trudeau can find a bunker somewhere, and maybe he can tunnel under and find Biden somewhere in his bunker in DC. Wouldn't surprise me if there was a tunnel that linked both of those things together. I'm sure there isn't. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if there was, but because these people are all cowards. They're all put into power by people who are above them, who represent this sort of global takeover of normalcy, and they continue to cause chaos. Notice we go from, COVID pandemonium right over to, military stuff going on, Russia and Ukraine, and these truckers. They knew that people at some point would begin to buckle and then say enough. And that's what's happened in Canada. You guys have the bravest people in Canada. Here in the United States, I know they're planning on going from the West Coast to DC. I'll believe that when I see it. All right. And hopefully they take a route that is supported by the people in those areas. I don't know how much support they're going to get in California, but I'm thinking if they could go across the country through the heartland, that thing would snowball. And by the time they got to DC, it would be pretty hard to go up against it. But you don't think our military wouldn't be used against truck drivers? And they're shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to infrastructure. If they really were concerned about those of us that didn't have enough food to eat, the homeless, the victims of their tyranny, which they're not because they caused it in the first place. But if they were concerned, they would say, look, time to drop the mandates. These truck drivers, they don't even listen to them. Like, okay, what's your grievance? Okay, I've had enough of this. I don't think this is good for me. I don't think this is good for my family. This isn't good for my health. I don't want to do it anymore. And you can't even say that. If you say that, you're branded as some kind of science denier, and you don't understand this is for the greater good and all Canadians just do this. We're obedient people. I've heard that a number of times. Canadians are obedient people. Well, guess what? They've run out of obedience. They're tired of being slaves to a government that's completely out of control. And it's up to the military, it's up to the police. There's nobody else that can intervene. I went through that list. The courts, gone. The media, gone. Academia, gone. Name an institution that isn't completely bought and sold out. And they're all beholden to these government oligarchs for their paychecks. And they're selfish. They would rather just do what the government says. And so many millions of people did the same thing for 2 years. But we didn't reap any benefit for doing that. We didn't get, extra money. Some people lost their businesses because they decided to go in and shut them down. And you can't recover from that, especially if you're a small business. But of course, Walmart and Amazon and all of these large companies, they're fine. They're doing great. In fact, better than ever, because everybody has to go there. Funny how they were telling you to socially distance, right? And then they would herd you into a crowded store or a crowded supermarket because you have to have food. You're allowed to go get the food in the most crowded and contagious place on the planet. They were telling you to go there. Now, of course, they did have delivery services, which again lined the pockets of people like Jeff Bezos, who's another oligarch and one of the richest guys on the planet, right? And he's going to do even better because people are afraid. We've scared so many people that they can't even go out. And these truckers said, you know what? I'm all by myself riding in this truck. I am not a super spreader person. Stop this. Let me just be free and let everybody else be free in the process. So this standoff is serious. When you hear run on the banks, that might actually be worse than Joe Biden having the nuclear football. It might be. I don't know. They're right up there. I get it. We're stoking war, and that's another whole other video, and that scares the crap out of me as well. But when societies collapse, when systems collapse, the phrase run on the banks is typically the thing that happens right before that. Now, they can turn it off, they can turn it back on, and this just goes to show you how much authoritarian central power these governments have, including the United States. We are right there. Pick a state. California is Canada, right? New York State is Canada. In some ways, even worse, because they don't seem to have the testicular fortitude like the people in Canada seem to have when it comes to standing up for their rights and freedoms, at least yet. You guys up there, you've inspired people. You've given other people hope and courage. It's time to pray for these people that they don't get hurt. And some are being arrested. How much they can do is just going to show us, quite honestly, if Canada survives as a so-called first world country. Because if they keep doing this, they're basically a large banana republic. And I don't know how you deal with that moving forward. And I think there's so much damage, both financial and psychological, and in so many ways, economic damage, that it's being self-inflicted. All these people have to do is say, you know what, truckers, you guys are right. Why is that so hard for these people to do? To just say, you guys are right. We're going to back off. You guys have been put through enough. It's high time we got rid of these rules. Let's do it today and stand up there and do the right thing and free Canada from the tyranny, which is just, it's just a blight on your soul. Every day having to wake up and witness this is just madness. So in any event, there you have it. Kind of a long video, but a run on the banks. That's, I can't even This is just far worse than you could ever imagine, because these people aren't backing down. They're not bluffing. They're not backing down. And it's going to come to the point where there will have to be some kind of intervention, kinetic intervention. I hate to even use those two words because I'm a peace-loving American, but at some point, how serious do we have to show them we are in order for them to change? And we've done all we can. These guys did this in the most peaceful way possible, yet they're branded as domestic terrorists. So that's it.